Hello everybody, how is it going? I am Lucas and welcome to another episode of Amps in the Axe-Fx 3. I am going to be your host Lucas, and today we are going to be looking at the Carvin Legacy VL100. Of course, this amp is actually used or was used by Steve Vai. It was his signature amp at one point in time. In the Axe-Fx 3, we have two of these. We have the Carvin Legacy and we have the LeCompte Steve. It's called the LeCompte 100. I named it the LeCompte Steve because it's actually his amp, personal amp that was modeled. So let's actually take a look and read a little bit about the amp itself. All the information I'm going to be giving you today is going to be coming from Yick's Amp Guide. I'm going to put a link to that in the description down below if you want to read some more about it. This is the first generation of Carvin Legacies that was modeled because apparently Steve didn't like the second or third generations. And nowadays, in the past, he kind of moved away from these amps and just used them as power amps, and was using like the preamp from this amp on a board, and was using the Axe-Fx for effects. He just came out with a Synergy actual like little module, signature module. So Steve's kind of moved away from these amps, and I don't even know. Carvin had like a going out of business sale. I think they're like relaunching themselves. I don't exactly know what is their current status. I think they're still around. I don't know if these amps are still in production, but anyway, sorry about that. It's powered by EL84 power tubes, and what makes this amp both special and weird at the same time is that the tone stack that's in it is very unique. So on it itself, you have presence and treble, which is 11K, mid, which is at 650, and the bass was at 100. And you have drive and a volume. They didn't model the clean channel on the Axe-Fx. You just get the distortion channel. So as Cliff says, it's used as a James tone stack, which is more for hi-fi controls. And the James tone stack is also referred to as the Baxendale tone stack. It's kind of a tone stack that's like on like hi-fi audio equipment that you would see, and you can definitely tell that the tone stack is different from most other amps, because when I was EQing it, I made some moves that I normally don't make, and it looks weird, but it eventually works out. The Carvin Legacy model has been a subject of discussion on the forum because some people said that it doesn't really resemble the real amp enough, and it doesn't let them achieve Steve Vai's tones. Steve Vai goes about his tones in a very unique way. I mean, you have to have his pickups, his DiMarzio pickups. He has a few different ones out. I think he probably designed this when his Evos were out and about. When you play this amp, no matter what you use, if you're trying to go for his tone, you need his pickups. I'm going to say that first off. Because whenever you play this amp, Steve Vai's tone doesn't necessarily jump out at you, because I know he uses a lot of distortion pedals too. He uses a lot of different stuff. This amp, I find too, is very particular about the type of pickups that you use, because I started out using my Fender American Professional Telly with shell barkers in it, and I was not a fan of the sound I was getting out of it. I honestly thought that these amps were trash when I was using both of them, and then I actually decided to plug in my Black Cat, which has Toast and Fishman's in it, and I was like, oh, okay, well, this is a very different sound, and it sounded a little better. I have this in drop C. And then I also plugged in my Ibanez RG570, because Vai uses Ibanez. It has a X2N in the bridge, and I was like, okay, well, let me try it on this, and I did not like it on the X2N at all, so I decided to go back to my Fishman's. So this amp is very particular about the pickups you use in it, and it's very weird when you dial it in. IR-wise, I'm using DGD Zilla's oversized 412 with a 57 mic on it with some UK V30s. So let's actually look at the amp itself. So this is the Carvin Legacy. I think I like this one a little bit more than I actually like Vai's one. It has a lot more low-end information on it per se. Watch, I'll show you what I'm talking about. They're both very unique, even though they're modeled off of the same amp. It's very weird. I have the bass jacked up right here I have the input drive at 5. For blown overdrive, they recommend pushing it to like 8 or 10. Let's see what it sounds like there. Kind of like it around 7. It gives it a little bit more beef. I have the bass at 8 because I had to jack it up because there wasn't enough. The mid contour on here is interesting because it changes. I jacked the treble and the presence up. I want to mess with the mid knob because I want to see if it's as wide as it is on Vise. It is. You heard how much of a sweep it has, so I kind of leave it around there. The mid knob is cool and weird at the same time because if you're not used to it, you have to shift it around a lot to get a tone you like. Nothing in ideal. I actually do have a drive on here. Let's hear it with it on and off. I'm leaving the drive up. I don't know why I put it on. I kind of like the thick low end that it gives. I can probably cut it a little bit to get a little of that mud out. It kind of benefits from a drive. Vi put tons of drive. I know he uses the DS1 a lot in front. I believe that was the one he uses, the little orange boss pedal. In case I actually get the name wrong. I didn't touch anything in here. Nothing in the speaker. It has a 212 Texas Stars input curve. I guess that's okay. I know they probably don't have the specific cabinet modeled for it. I guess that's fine. No, I didn't touch nothing in there. The EQ is weird. As you can see, I'll put more bass into it, and I actually didn't scoop a whole lot of mids. The mids are okay in here. It doesn't need a lot of scoop. It's just the tone stack in here is very weird. And like I said, this one has a lot more bass as compared to Steve Vai's personal modeled one. I'm using the same IR, proximity and smoothing. That's a little bit of room. That's both. It's the same for both amps. I put the presence and treble all the way up on here because it's an extremely dark amp. Watch, I'm going to back these down. I'm going to back this down to 5 and I put this around 7. This is normally what 98% of the amps. This is usually where I start. Let's see what it sounds like. Actually sounds pretty decent. It gets a little bright right there. Let's back that down to like 8. That sounds good around 8. We'll do it right there. It's the mid-range. Watch, I'm gonna do the same exact thing I did as on the the mids, it's not as crazy on Steve's amp as it is on the other one. Once again, as with every video I do most of the time, I don't touch anything on here. The 412 USA lead, that's interesting. The impedances are different on both. Nothing in here. Output, I've actually had a scoop in it. Let's do EQ on and off. This amp has like a ton of mids in it. It kind of reminds me of a Marshall a little bit. I guess it's because of the power tubes. But like I said, it's very interesting. It seems that the tone stack on Steve's amp is kind of the same, but it's different. It doesn't seem as like insane as it does on the normal one. Ladies and gentlemen, that is going to wrap things up for the Carvin Legacy amps. Kind of what I alluded to before, when I first tried out these amps on a different guitar on my telly, I didn't like them at all, and they were just really bad. Like, they were hard to dial in. I was not inspired by the tones. I grabbed, my Black Cat, like I said, and the Fishman just responded to it a lot better. These still aren't my favorite amps. I wouldn't run to these if I'm trying to dial up a quick tone that sounds really good. I'd probably run to like a 5150, but that's just me. These are cool. They kind of remind me of sort of like a Marshall alternative with a little bit different thinking behind it. Kind of, not really, but kind of. You can get some pretty cool stuff out of it. It's not so much the best high gain amp ever. I would suggest more like classic rock tones would probably be good for, or a little bit of like active rock. You can sprinkle a little bit of active rock in there, but I don't exactly know how I feel about it for high gain stuff. But enough about me and my opinions. Let's hear from you guys. Do you like these amps? Do you use them in your patches? Let me know your tips and tricks in the comments down below. But as for me, I'm gonna have to be out. Peace.